Hello, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all well, and thank you so much for coming over and watching this video. On this video, I'm going to make a tea light holder, very similar shape and style to this, but we're going to do something slightly different. I had a student in the other day, and he wanted to do his sky blue and electric green embellishing wax. I was thinking, ain't really going to work, but to be honest, I was very surprised with how the embellishing wax reacted, and when you put the embellishing wax on, it more came like a goldy turquoisey color rather than just the green. Looked really nice. So I'm going to have a go at making one and ready for my craft fair on Sunday. So I sell quite a few of these on my craft fair, nice little tea lights with a high gloss on them, but I thought I'd bring it a step up a little bit by doing some with some colors in them. So that's what we're going to do. So let's stop the chit chat and let's get on the lathe and start making some. So this is the sister piece that was with the piece my student had the other day. So we're going to use this to go off of this. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously find our center so we can get a Forstner bit in there to mount on our chuck. I'm using the SC2 chuck, so I only require a mortise of 42 millimeters. So let's go over to the pedestal drill. Now I've marked my center and get this drilled out so then we can mount it straight onto our chuck. Right, so here we are over at our bench drill. Light's not too good because obviously the light's behind me. So first thing I'm going to do is mark my center with my mortise bit in the center, and then we're going to drill that. We only want this maybe 3 or 4 millimeters deep. So there we go. Let's just get our rubbish bin. Get rid of the shavings in the bin. Get rid of as much as we can anyway. So let's get back over to the lathe. So we're now going to mount this onto our lathe. Like I say, I'm using the SC2 chuck. Great little chuck for doing little bits like this. So get that mounted on there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round it off. So we're working with something round. So bring in my 3/8 bowl gouge just to round this off. Nice steady push cut. Should be round. Nope, still got a little bit more to go. So one more pass. So it's now round. So what we need to do now is we need to flatten the bottom off, and then we need to create a mortise in the bottom of our piece there. So we're going to flatten our bottom off, and we're going to keep our handle low and just do a nice little pull cut across there. Nice and gently. Now we're going to find the center of our piece, which is there. So we've marked the center. So what we're going to do now is mark where our mortise is going to go. So I'm going to be using this mortise and tenon jig that I've made with, through the Buddy range. Website will be in the description below if you'd like to have a look at these. So on this I've got the SC2 chuck. So we require a 42mm mortise and a 34mm tenon. And then on this side is the SC3 and SC4. These are all for record power, and we need a 54mm mortise and a 46mm tenon. So we're using the SC2, so we want a 42mm mortise. So we're going to line the center line up with the center of that, and then we're going to mark here. The reason it's got marks on both sides is so once you've cut your mortise, you can just guide it up and make sure that you've got the correct size. So Mark this off, like so. We're going to bring in our parting tool to give us a little bit of a line in there, just on that line. Taking it around about 3mm deep, like so. We're going to bring back our bowl gouge and just clean that out. Like so. So now we're going to bring in a small scraper or skew chisel, and we're just going to clean that out. Put a little tiny bit of a dovetail in the back of that. I don't need it, but we're just going to put it in there just so we've got a little bit extra security. And then we're going to put a relief line in there where we want our little foot. Now you need to make sure that the tenon is deeper than your foot. If you have the foot as deep as the tenon, then when you grab it and expand it in your chuck, it's likely that the foot's going to break off because you're only grabbing on the foot and not actually grabbing on the bowl bottom. So you need to make sure your foot is not as deep as your tenon is. So we're going to come in here nice and wide and just mark where we're going to have our foot, which is there. Again, making sure it's not as deep as our tenon. And now we can come back and start shaping the shape we want for our tea light holder. So we're now going to start shaping this around with some pull cuts. We're using the nose of the tool to ride along the edge of our rim, or our foot should I say. So it gives us a nice transaction line in the bottom there. And then we just gently ride around the corner to give us our shape. Going to move our tool rest a little bit around so we can carry on the shape coming round. So we're just going to drop the tool rest a little tiny bit because it's a little bit high. And we're just going to carry on bringing this shape round. We want a nice gracious curve. We want something that's going to be pleasant to the eyes that sits on the table. So you don't want no humps and bumps in it. You just want a nice gracious curve coming around that corner. So we're going to come around here, just turn this into a push cut and ride that around. And we're looking here for our shape. We're not looking here, we're looking here. If you need to, stop the lathe, take it out, have another look and do it that way. But you can see the eye line here, so you can see we've got a little bit of a lump in there. So we're just going to gently feather that out. Like so you can see we've got a nice graceful shape now. So now what we need to do is you need to start bringing it around and over. So what we're going to do is we're going to come on the other side and start bringing that round this corner side. So we can do this with push cuts, so just gently remove it with push cuts. Not like that though. So we want to try and get that a natural flow around that corner. So just keep tinkering it until you get what you're happy with. So we've got a little bit of a round there, so we just need to bring this transition line in. So we can do that just using scraping cuts with the bowl gouge. We're just going to gradually round that in until we're happy with the shape we're looking at. So again, we're looking here. So we're coming around the other way down just to gently feather that in. And you can see now we've got that nice graceful curve coming around there. So we just need to finish off in here. Leave a little bit of a lip there that we can modify once we're doing the front. And there we have our shape that we want. So I'm just going to round it off just a little bit more there. It's a little bit sharp there for me. So just round it off a little bit more. So there we go. So I'm happy with that shape now. We've got that nice graceful curve coming over. A little bit of a high spot there, but we can remove that with our sanding. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back onto the bottom and just make the bottom. Actually, no, I'm not. So I've got my graceful shape now. I'm happy with the way that curves over. I've got my little lip there that we can titivate once we flip it. The reason I want to finish the front and the back, other than the little rim, while it's this way, is because if I sand this now, it's going to be rotating this way. If I flip it and rotate it, so this is this end in the headstock, or in the chuck, shall I say. When I sand it, the grain's going to be pushed the other way, so it's going to give me a sanding line that we're going to see. So you'd see a line on the edge of where the sanding, what was going one way on one grain, the other grain. That's not a problem if you've got a lathe with reverse sanding, which I have, which is not a problem. Or a reverse run on it, sorry. But it's easier to get that finished as it is and then just sand it all in one go. Right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly sand that, and then we can move on and flip it, and then I'm going to colour the whole piece in one go. So let's get this sanded, and we'll see how it comes up. Alright, so we're just going to sand this quickly, just to remove any imperfections. We can now hone that edge a little bit if we want to. We can just sand it to get the perfect shape that we want. So we're going to get as tight to that foot as we can. We're just going to have to finish it by hand, because we're not going to get the sanding pad right up tight, but we can finish that once we take the pad off of the inertia sander. So the first grit is just to remove any imperfections, any tool marks you may have, any tear out. Obviously we want to try and get the best we can off the tool, but sometimes the wood doesn't allow that, so we have to improvise. So that's the first grit. We're going to stop, make sure we've got no tool marks, which we haven't. We're now going to take a clean bit of paper, and we're just going to get tight in this edge here You mean putting a foot on is great, makes it look nice because it sits just off the table a little bit, but it gives you issues with getting into these tight spots here. But with a little bit of perseverance, you can get into them. Be careful when you're sanding like that. If you fold your pad in half, you've then created a cutting line, so that could cut into it. If you can, just gently rub the edge of the sandpaper against and do it that way. So we've sanded this up to 400 grit now. So what I want to do, I just want to put some little lines in the bottom there so it looks like we've actually thought about leaving the mortise on it. Obviously, leaving the mortise on is not ideal, but for something that you're only going to charge £10–15 for, you don't want to spend you don't want to spend ages on it, turning off the tenon and this, that, and the other. So what we're going to do is just put a few little lines in there, just to look like we've actually thought about what we're going to do with it. So just going to bring in the skew, just a couple of little lines in here, nothing high tech, nice and gentle, and then we shouldn't get any tear out. But we want to do these after we do the sanding, because if not, we end up sanding them away. And if you wanted to, you could just put a couple in the foot as well, just to look. So it just looks like you've actually spent a little bit of time thinking about what you're going to do with it. So we're just going to take that and we're just going to make sure we've got any tear out in there, which we haven't. So what we're going to do is just going to get our final grit bit of 400 and just gently rub over that lightly, just to take any fluffy bits away, just in case there's any fluffy bits there. Okay, so what we've done is we're now ready to get our colour on this part of it. I think as it comes over the top of the rim like this, I think I'm going to do this bit and leave this bit natural, so we've actually got a bit of natural wood and a bit of coloured wood in it, just so it gives a little bit of, you know, definition that it is actually wood and we haven't just coloured it in and made it look awful. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our board, going to get some gloves on, and then we're going to colour this sky blue. So I'm actually going to colour this with an airbrush. You can do it with a cloth, but I'm going to do it with an airbrush. I always feel that I get a more even coverage with an airbrush. So turn our brush down, get a bit of tissue, so we make sure we get a nice even coverage. So we don't want it coming out too heavy. Airbrush only wants to be running around about 15 to 18 psi. Doesn't need to be heavy. If you get it on too heavy, then you're just going to end up blowing it everywhere. So we're better off with several coats than one heavy coat. So that's what we're going to do. So first coat's going to be quite a thin coat, just to give us a little bit of coverage, and then we'll gradually build up the depth of colour over several layers. So that's our first coat. We're going to let that dry off. Okay, yes, it looks very patchy at the moment, but as it dries, it should even itself out. It's quite a dark piece of wood anyway, being a piece of elm, so it's not actually going to give you the true sky blue like it would if it was on a piece of ash or sycamore. So just gradually build these colours up, or this colour up. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop that and have a look. Make sure we've got a nice, so we've got a little bit of patchiness there, but we've got a nice even coat going over it, so we just need to gradually build up those colours. And remember, we're going to actually be using an embellishing wax over the top of it, so we're going to be enhancing the grain as well. So we're just going to bring in another light dust. Trying to get a nice even coat on there. Let that dry. So we've got a nice even coat now. Nice even coat all over it. So what we're going to do is we're going to now apply some sand and sealer over that to make sure we seal the colour in nice before we apply our wax. So we're going to give it a nice couple of generous coats of cellulose sand and sealer. This is Hampshire Sheen's. Nice pre-thinned cellulose sand and sealer. Now you're going to get some colour come off when you wipe this over. Don't worry about that, that's going to come off, but it doesn't matter as long as you get a nice even coverage on your piece. Then you're going to have to do this in a couple of light coats, and then you can get a nice finish on it. So we're going to make sure we get tight around that rim. Make sure we get inside our foot as well. Like I say, your colour's going to come off on your cloth, but you can't do a lot about that. But you want to give it a nice couple of coats, making sure you get it well in the grain, because we want it to seal. If you don't get it sealed properly at this stage, then when you come to wax it, you end up with a non-shiny finish, because the wax will soak into the timber and you never get a shine no matter what you do. So we need to spend a little bit of time sealing it, and then we can make sure we get a nice finish on it. So we're going to give it our next coat. And like I say, don't worry about the colour coming off. It's going to come off, you can't get away from that. But what you want is nice, even coats of sand and sealer, and nice thin coats as well. Try not to get any streak marks in it or leave any excess sand and sealer on your piece, because you will see those once you wax it. So you need to make sure you wipe it over nice and evenly. So we're going to let that dry off. You can see it's gone quite dark now. Now we'll lighten up a little bit as it dries off, but you can see that you've got different colours. You've got where it's quite open grain, you've got a bit dark there, but where it's a harder grain, you can see the blue coming through it. So it's going to be a little bit patchy, but you can't really do a lot about that. We're just going to let that dry off, and then we're going to denib that with a piece of 00 Scotch Brite. Right, so what we're going to do is now we're going to buff this off. So we're going to turn the label on, a bit of speed. We're just going to gently apply our tissue, don't need to be pushing hard on it. And all we're doing is just removing the excess wax that we don't want. Now this is going to give us a little bit of a sheen, but you don't really want a high gloss on it, just enough to enhance the grain on it, really. Keep moving our tissue about so we get all the excess wax off of it. And there we have it embellished. As you can see, that green is more of a turquoisey, goldy green rather than a green. It's really nice, really, really nice. Right, so that's the bottom all finished. So what we can do now is we can flip that and start to refine our top. We're going to take that and flip it over. Remember not to do it up too tight, because we're only going to be holding on that little bit of a chuck. So the inserts are 41mm. They're not quite round, they're a little bit of an oval shape, so we might need 41.5. But what we're going to do is, this is 42mm. Well, actually, that's a bit bigger than 42. So what we're going to do is we're going to gently take that in, because I like that to be dipped in a little bit. And we're going to clean all this away, and then we're going to decide what we're going to Obviously we're going to put it in the middle, but we're going to decide then what sort of shape we want to do that with. So we're going to bring in a spindle gouge. We're going to start taking this away, just gently. So like I said, we're going to leave this edge on here so it comes up and over, but obviously we need just to take it up to that line, just so we've got our nice finish line there. So we're going to bring that in there like that. And we're going to put a little dip in there, which is what we want. Now once we find our centre for our where we're going to put our tea light, then we can refine this to whatever we've got there. But at the moment we're going to get rid of this line here. So let's just get rid of that line now. Sorry, like that. So now we can mark our hole. Like I said, we wanted we'll start with 40 millimeters. So our center's there, so let's go 20 millimeters around about there somewhere. We can always make it a little bit bigger, can't make it smaller. So that's what we're going to start with. So we're going to bring our parting tool back and just start nibbling this away. Now it needs to be quite deep, but at the moment we just want to test the size. So we're just going to check our size. That's actually a perfect size. So that's what we're going to go with. So now we just got to make it deep enough. Just going to check that a little bit deeper. Now we want a little bit of a rim there, because if you look at these got a little bit of a lip on them. So we need to keep those, we need to make sure we've got a little bit of a lip there sitting, and that's hence why we left that for the moment, and then we can shape that to do what we want to do. So let's put that in. Oh, we're nearly there, nearly there, nearly there, nearly there. Just a little bit more. Just put a little bit of a skew in there just to clean the bottom edge up. So there we go, nice snug fit. So we just need to clean it up a little bit in there. It's not the best. I'm just going to run our parting tool down there, just clean it up. That's it. There we go. So where it is now is actually not far off, as you can see. Let's just zoom in a little bit. As you can see there, we've just got that little lip around the edge here, so that's perfect. We don't want much more than that. So maybe just scallop this out a little tiny bit, but I'm not going to go no closer in than what we've already got there. So let's just gently scallop that in a little bit more. So I'm just using a small spindle gouge. So we've got that nice little scallop in there. So what we just need to do now is just gently get a bit of sandpaper and just gently sand this bit here. We don't want to touch this, because if we touch this we're going to lose that nice crisp line and edge, but we just need to gently sand in there and maybe a little tiny bit in there, then we can seal it. So we're going to go from 120 up to 400. So just gently going to go in here. Alright, so that's sanded all up to 400. Got a little ridge in here, but I'm not going to worry about that because we're going to have our insert in there. But we've got that little lip sitting on there, so that's perfect. So what we need to do is just gently sand and seal this so that we can get it waxed up and finished. We'll gently wipe off the dust off of there. Gently wipe the dust out of there. So again, we don't want to be getting sand and sealer all over our tea light. So we'll make sure we're getting nice and gentle along them edges. So we're going to be as careful as we can. We obviously need to get on that edge there, but as careful as we can get, because this will take, the cellulose sand and sealer will take off the colour if you're not careful. So we're going to let that dry off. I'm just going to put a little bit of wax on there. So Hampshire Sheen high gloss wax. Just a little tiny bit of wax on there. So we're going to let that dry. I'm just going to buff that off. Going to give it a second coat. Don't need to give it a second coat, but I always like to give it 2 coats just in case I've missed a bit with the first coat. We're going to come back and then we're just going to polish that again. Don't need to push hard on it, just buffing it. Don't you push hard on it, you're just going to burnish off the wax. So you don't need to push hard on it at all. So just gently. It's quite a nice contrast with the glossy top and then the satin outer edge is quite a nice contrast. So then what we should be is we should be all done with our little tea light holder. So there we have a simple little tea light holder, and like I said, over the blue, if you look at the green, out of the tin, it's quite a vibrant green, but when you actually put it over the blue, it brings it really to a more subtle green. Okay, yeah, you got a bit there, but it's quite deep there, but when you go there, it just makes that look a little bit different. And then you got the gloss against the satin, just gives that a nice little contrast. Anyway, I will get some photographs of this and stick them at the end of the video. Hope you've enjoyed. If you make one, then please share it. Send me a picture of it and let me have a look at it. I'd love to see your designs and your styles. But other than that, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.